All right, how are we looking and sounding? We'll get started here in a moment. Looks good, sounds good. If you were here as I was futzing with it 5 minutes ago, sorry about that. I think I'm on my Mac, and when things start being a little choppy, I just rather restart everything, clear data, cache. You know how it goes. All right, Dr. 420, welcome back, man. Good seeing you all. Welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's green. Today's video, my goal here is to keep this conversation more casual. I'll just get into charts and sort of think out loud, externally process, and we'll just have a conversation. You guys can ask questions, or if you want to talk about a certain stock or crypto, feel free to comment that below. Otherwise, hope y'all are having a wonderful Friday and a great week so far. So just jumping into Bitcoin right now, and I'll sort of kind of bring you through the process of what and how I look at cryptos, and not saying it's for everyone, but this is what kind of works for me. I'm a big believer in using fibs and moving averages together. Here's one of my main moving average indicators. And combined, that gives me a good idea of when to buy. Now, as far as what to buy, I mean, we all have a different plan, but I like high floor, high upside potential type of cryptos. That's why I really like Chainlink, and why Avalanche is intriguing to me. Even other cryptos like Near, Ondo. I thought Ondo recently was at a good price. So I look for cryptos that I think have a high floor, aren't going to just let the bottom fall out, but can also do pretty well come alt season. Fetch, FET, Fetch.ai, now Artificial Superintelligence Alliance. I mean, if we have a crypto with AI in the name, how can it not do good in an AI bubble? So I do my own research, look for cryptos, and ask myself, okay, what are some of the safest ones that can do well come alt season, right? And alt season, I mean, it's ticking up. Alts are ticking up towards that time. And we have that phenomena known as the 4-year cycle, where you get these peaks every 4 years. That cycle is a little weird with all the money printing out of thin air, but we're getting close to that 4-year cycle time, which is at the end of the year. So give or take, that might be when we see cryptos doing very well and markets going euphoric. So that's sort of the what. And then as I just jump into it, I take a look at Bitcoin first, because Bitcoin to me is the waters that raise all boats. Some boats are bigger than others, those boats being our altcoins. And right now with fibs and moving averages, what do we see? Well, low to high from this recent sort of medium term low back in June to the high in August, that was 125K roughly. Bitcoin is right at this 236 fib. It's struggling to get through that 236 fib. Now, I was talking before in this whole range here how whichever way we saw Bitcoin break up first, I think was going to be a telltale sign. Not that we can't go lower before going up, and that's normal. We can't just go straight up. But I think breaking through all these moving averages again is just very bullish for Bitcoin. From that low to high, we had a 618 pullback. We got through the resistances, even this massive trend line for the inverse head and shoulders. We're above all that, and we just have the 236. So in my opinion, that's majorly bullish for Bitcoin. I don't care that it fell 1,152 points. As you take a look at the last 5 days or so, let's even stretch it out to a month and just zoom in on this section here. Once Bitcoin was getting above that trend line, we've just been chopping sideways. Now, we tested that 236 a couple times, and Eric Ward, you are special. You don't need to be here for the lives to not be special. Appreciate you being here, though, bud. But as we take a look with ever since Bitcoin got above that inverse head and shoulders line there on September 11th, never forget, we've just been chopping sideways, testing. I'm sure we'll come back down to that trend line area. And look how many times, by the way, this trend line has come into play. Yes, the 50-day moving average, the 50 moving average on the 30-minute time frame, whatever you want to call that. But as we zoom out, again, look at this trend line from these tops, the inverse head and shoulders. Okay, that trend line keeps coming into play. So zooming in once again, I think we might continue to see Bitcoin test that 115-ish range. We do have the 382 there at 113.7, but I'm not worried about it. I do think Bitcoin is looking very good here. Now, there are some seasonality things, and these are just, it's not me being bearish. It's just things that I'm prepared for, that if it happens, I will attack my positions even harder. I will add to them even more. And that's seasonality, our almanac perspective. August, September are two worst months for crypto. Now, we had something similar happen last year that just happened this last week. And unless you've been living under a rock, you heard Jerome Powell talk about how we have now had a 25 basis point rate cut. So if we add on the US INTR, that's the United States interest rates, I want you to look at something with me here. I think, let's get rid of the moving averages. Okay. If you want to see what this meant for Bitcoin last time around, look at when this cut started. It was in September. It's in the middle of September, just like it was last year. But look at the price of Bitcoin. It was at around 58K, roughly speaking. And by the time this whole move was done, pretty much in January, Bitcoin had a 90% move up in around 4 months. Do you guys know what a 90% move up in 4 months would be? Now, here we got a 50 base point, a pause, and then a couple 25s. And so overall, 25, 25, 0, 50. You average that all out. It's a 25 base point rate cut average. You average that all out. That's similar to what it sounds like the Fed's doing this time around. And remember what we just talked about, 90% move upward. Where does a 90% move upward take us if the Fed continues to cut rates? We'll zoom out here a bit. We're going to need to, because I already know the answer. If you've been watching the videos, you know the answer. We'll get right where Bitcoin is right now, around 115. Of course, that's going to happen. We'll go 120 days, roughly 4 months, 90% move up is around 210K. We'll say 210K Bitcoin, okay? And that would complete come January. So 180,000 is Eric's guess. And, I have no problem with that because, we've been talking about 180K for a bit. Again, I think a lot of data points line up, and this will continue to be my base case macro-wise. We have our last cycle high to low fib. Here are all our fib targets. I love this 2618 to 3618 range. And if we go back to prior cycles, we hit a lower fib each time. Bitcoin topped out in the 3618 to 4236 range last cycle. But the thing that's different this time around is we've had a lot of inflation. Our dollars are devalued. There's been a lot of quantitative easing since this time. So you can see right here, Bitcoin topped out between the 3618, 4236 last cycle. Every cycle we hit a lower area, and that's why we have this rainbow chart. That's why we hit these lower highs. That's why I'm looking in the orange bands here. You can go with the January. Heck, why not? You see where that orange box is. It's right at around 200K. So whether it's 180, whether it's 210, I think that's all within play. And we add on our indicators here, our pi cycle high and low. I'm going to do this one at a time. You see how Bitcoin, as we get to these highs, it either crosses over the pi cycle high or it bumps into it. We had that mid-cycle top last time, and we kind of had it this time, though, is before the halving. So I've always wondered, was this technically the top because it was between the halvings, those white lines? Maybe. It would suck to have a 4-year cycle from this point, but I digress. I don't think that's going to happen. But that's like worst case scenario. That pi cycle, look where it's coming up to, that 3618. So when we get these big euphoric moves, and it just showed what happens with rate cuts, the last rate cut cycle, we saw what happened. Bitcoin had a 90% move in about 4-ish months. Okay, that takes us to the 3618, right where that log regression trend is, and the pi cycle top. And we can take a look at log regression on the charts here as well, on the weekly. And you can see the last couple Bitcoin tops have been right near about 40 to 50%, or sorry, 80 to 90% of the way up in that red band. So, whether it's 180, 210, I think all of that is in play. 155K is sort of my first line in the sand. Once Bitcoin gets to the 155K area, I am ready for alt season to happen at any time. And for this rotation to come to completion, when our altcoins, whether you have Chainlink, Ondo, Bonk, Fetch.ai, Jasmy, Alchemy Pay, whatever it is, AVAX, I think this is the time that we are gearing up towards. And after 155K, that can happen at any time. I did a video this week on Bitcoin dominance and talked about how that's looking right now. I think it helps having moving averages on here. That we hit this 100-week moving average. We're seeing if it can break under. Last cycle, we did have that sort of double swing of Bitcoin dominance. And if we add on the stochastic RSI, something else we see is that, at least on the stochastic, the last 2 cycles, it has this double bottom. And we are just bottoming the first time. And it's possible we just stay down here and go completely down. Okay, that's possible. But I'm wondering, I've compared this cycle a lot with 2017 cycle. I think there's more similarities to 2017. I wonder if we're going to get something like this where Bitcoin dominance kind of comes up for a couple months and then goes down. So whether we're going to bottom here or maybe around 52%, okay, in a month or two, which would put us into December after that happens, couple months up, and then crash. So it's possible if that were to play out, we get one of these and we wouldn't see an alt season until March or April, which is fine. But if this just continues to trend down, then we're looking very much in line with that December 4-year cycle. November, December is when it comes to completion. But we got to be ready for all of it. Let's take a look at this on the weekly. I think we drew a fib from Fibonacci retracement, high to low here. And is our fib on log? Nope. And we saw that we were also at the 618. Okay, so high to low, came up to the 786-ish area, came down, we're at the 618, and we're at that 100 week moving average. So a bit of resistance there. And again, if you don't know what Bitcoin dominance is, 58% of all money in crypto is in dominance. And so that's just, when this number goes down, that's when we get good movements in the alt season. 1 second. All right. So, total 3, taking a look at that. We are right at all-time high lines again. When total 3 breaks above its former all-time high, when this happened last cycle, Okay, here was the 2017 total 3 top, total market cap outside of Bitcoin and ETH. When we broke above that, zoom in here, when we broke above that alt season, I'm talking candle bodies now. Alt season it ended by May 10th, by the way. It was 3 months away, roughly 3 months away, okay? 150% move up. So we are right at the former cycle high now. But Heikenashis, I love Heikenashi candles because they give us a clear picture. When we have a Heikenashi candle right at this area, but just a wick, it says, okay, the move isn't confirmed yet. This is what happened in March of 24 with Bitcoin, by the way. We had wicks above, but no candles, and then Bitcoin flushed. But if all of a sudden we get a similar move and we start seeing total 3 move above its last cycle high, I mean, even a 1/3 of the percent of the move inside of 90 days, that takes us out to December 4-year cycle, and we are hitting that 1618 fib extension. But if we get that 150% move, I mean, where would that take us? This is 120%. And to me, this would fall in line with, just diminished returns the way crypto is. Let's extend this fib out. It's curious to me. Let's match these up. It's curious to me how we're just staying in this channel. And I think this ascending channel can eventually get up here 2.5 trillion for total 3 at most. And then maybe we fall off. But again, we can have big moves in here where we just sort of chop up to that point. And if we got there, if total 3 did get that high, again, I think that's another sign that we get an alt season in Q1, Q2 next year. I'm fine with the 4-year cycle this year, but Q1, Q2 this year, an alt season at the end of this year, I have no problem with it at all. Let's also take a look at, with these rate cuts, what happened with total 3 at the end of last year. So it's pretty clear to me. The Fed cutting by 25 basis points average. Okay, they did 1, 2, 3 cuts. They paused because they didn't meet that month. Look what happened to total 3. Total 3 went from, this is our altcoins now, large caps, small caps, everything. Total 3 went from, I want to line this up. It was all the way down here at like 570 billion. Let's measure this out. And this is just roughly speaking. But yes, we went down a little bit after cuts ended. But again, around 100 days, 100% move up. Okay, we just had a cut. 100 days, 100% move up. Where would that take us from right now? And I'll go to where this cut is on the plot. 100 days, 100% move up. And this is, I'm using one of those mouse rolly pads. So that would put us, again, 4-year cycle later this year, and then close to the upper end of this channel. So I don't think you can do technical analysis and predict things based on time. I'm just doing a comparison. Again, this isn't a prediction, but I'm just showing you this is what happened in the altcoin market last rate cut cycle. And if we expect anything similar with Bitcoin, okay, look at this rate cut cycle last year. Anything similar with Bitcoin happens this time around, that's how we get to 200K Bitcoin. Or 150 to 200K Bitcoin. To me, it doesn't matter. Okay, you see those orange boxes. Again, I'm going by, look at how these tops regress into these lower log bands over time. I'm looking at that orange box somewhere 190 to 250K. I think 190 to 210. The last rainbow chart shows it even better. Look at how these tops diminish. Okay. And from 2017 to 2021, it went down from the peak, 1, 2, 3 total color bands. Okay. And I mean, this is just by comparison, but if we go down 3 color bands, you have orange, yellow, green. And let's take that out to January. Look at that, 210K Bitcoin. There's a lot of things lining up for 200K Bitcoin, give or take. It's kind of crazy to me, even with the rate cut move. And so if we get that rotation, we get a major alt season. And remember, we're in phase 2 right now. Alt season is when Bitcoin is too expensive to keep buying. Bitcoin is too expensive to keep buying, so we get that Bitcoin dominance drop because the money in Bitcoin then rotates into altcoins. And what happens with these altcoins, I've been through the last 2 cycles. First cycle, I made a lot of money off Tron. Okay. Last cycle, I made a good amount of money on District OX. It was a 2017 coin. If I would have been in newer altcoins, would have done better. Not making that mistake this time around. But those were my biggest winners these prior 2 cycles. But again, what happens is, out of nowhere, if you're in the right altcoins, when we get that rotation from the Bitcoin top, first cycle, Tron did like over 100x. It was crazy. Last cycle, the altcoins I was in, they were doing a 5 to a 10x. Very happy with it. Okay, I'm in altcoins like Chainlink, Jasmy, Ondo, some of those. Have a little bit in AVAX. A little bit in Doge. I'm not expecting Doge to go to over, $150 billion. If it gets to around $150 billion market cap, or its former all-time highs, I might just withdraw it. But that's when we get those mega pumps, and that's when retail comes in. Okay, the whales lead the charge. They rotate their money from Bitcoin to all these altcoins. Let me show you this again. The whales with all the money, they see Bitcoin's too expensive to keep buying. They're like, you know what? We have all these altcoins for cheap. Let's rotate in there. And what does retail do? They chase. They go in after some of these 5x. And then retail comes in. They pump it further. And that's when the whales rug pull. And that's why we get this 3-week alt season. If we go to Bitcoin dominance, again, and I could show you this on Ethereum. I could show you this on a lot of altcoin charts. But take a look at these alt seasons. This was 2017. It's about 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, whatever you want to say. Let's add on the Bitcoin chart. Okay, you can see where Bitcoin tops. This was the peak of Bitcoin here. Again, Bitcoin dominance is when we get a rotation. Bitcoin is too expensive to keep buying. And so we get this rotation. During that rotation, look where Bitcoin's going. The lower high. This is January 8th. That's right. I'll never forget that day. Learned a lot of expensive lessons that day. Could have made that Tron I was telling you about, could have made 100x, but I thought I was going to keep going up, and I got a bit less than that. Still made money, but sad pandas. Anyways, you see where Bitcoin topped. Okay, here's the rotation. Actually, let's go to this last cycle and just prove that point again. Look where Bitcoin topped again. This was the true alt season here, okay? Look where Bitcoin topped. Look where Bitcoin dominance is. This is that rotation, which lasted about a month. Again, 3 to 4 weeks. We had that double top and a mini rotation. Some altcoins did go higher. So you see where Bitcoin topped before dominance dropping. Now, let's add on the number one altcoin. Let's add on Ethereum. Look where Ethereum tops out. Ethereum tops out a little bit later. What is going on? Ethereum tops out a little bit later. You see where Bitcoin dominance is at that Ethereum peak? Okay, that was 2017. Here's 2021. Again, this was the true alt season. Yes, ETH went higher over here, but this was alt season. If you weren't there, you're going to have to trust me, bro, on it. We can take a look at a lot of other altcoins to show that. Actually, I wonder, Doge was the very popular altcoin last cycle. Where did Doge top? Yeah, here you go. This was, Wall Street bets and all that nonsense. Look where Doge topped. Remember, we just saw Bitcoin was topping around here. Okay, Doge topping over there. Let's just go to the Bitcoin chart. Let's go to the blank Bitcoin chart. And we'll add on Ethereum. Okay? Again, I want to drive this point home. Look where Bitcoin was topping. Look where Ethereum was topping. Look where Bitcoin was topping. And then 3-4 weeks later, that's where Ethereum was topping. And to just drive this home even further, let's look at it from Ethereum's perspective. You're going to love this. We're going to go to 2017. All right, we're in the right spot. And we're going to add on Bitcoin. But now I want you to pay attention to Ethereum's price. This is, again, the alt season we are waiting for. That rotation. Bitcoin's too expensive to keep buying. And so we rotate into alts. Look where Ethereum was. Actually, let's go to the daily. And I see so many people on Twitter, YouTube making this way more complicated than it needs to be. Look where Ethereum was. Okay, we'll go to the middle of that candle, 690. Hell, let's say 700. We'll round up. 700, and by the time Ethereum topped out, you see that price on the right, 1400. Ethereum did a 2x from the Bitcoin top. Can you imagine? ETH is at 4,500 right now. If it did a 2x, it'd be at 9K. I've been calling for 10 to 11K ETH, and people think I'm crazy. But, let's go to last cycle, 2021. Well, ETH didn't do a 2x last cycle, right? Let's look at that alt season from the Bitcoin top. Where was ETH at that time? This candle right here, we'll go to the middle of it. We'll round up again. You see that price over there? ETH was at around 2,200. We'll round up. We'll take the higher number. Where did ETH top out from that alt season rotation? 4K. It got up a little higher, but let's just go to the middle of that. 4K. So almost a 2x. Again, ETH did it just over a 2x and almost a 2x. So if we get that this time around, in Bitcoin, for all we know, it hasn't topped yet. And so ETH can just keep pumping. And we can argue ETH hasn't gotten to where it could top yet. ETH could go to, let's go zoom out a little bit. ETH might keep pumping and get up to, 5K, 5.5K by the time Bitcoin tops. But if ETH does near a 2x, that 2618's in play at 11K, which is crazy. But as I showed you that chart before of the rotation, where are we now, you might ask? We are in phase 2. Ethereum is performing better than Bitcoin, and you see it right here in this chart. I have a fib drawn out from high to low. Okay. Let's add on our moving averages. Moving averages and fibs tell a very good story. So ETH dash Bitcoin, and by the way, you're like, what does that mean? 0.23. 0.23 is also 23%. Ethereum's market cap, 541 billion, is 23% that of Bitcoin's market cap at 2.3 trillion. Do the math on your phone. Okay, divide 541 into 2,300. You will come up with 23%. That's what that means. Okay. We saw ETH Bitcoin get above the 50 week and the 382 fib. Both those signs are bullish signs. It ran into the 0.5 fib and the 100-week moving average. This is a lazy prediction. I think we could get a little bit of a pullback. I think that lines up with typical seasonality. Maybe we all of a sudden get a flush the next couple weeks. Markets have been doing very well for a minute, and I think a pullback in time is just to be expected. And it'll freak people out. And if we do get that, I'm going to be buying any dip that comes very aggressively. That's me, not telling you what to do. But this is just average seasonality on the NASDAQ, okay? So if we get a dip like that, I'm fine with it. And I think it's almost to be expected with how well the markets are doing within the next 2-3 weeks. I would not be shocked. But let's take a look at where did ETH Bitcoin get to? Maybe you think the 11K area for ETH is crazy. Again, we've made the argument Bitcoin could get to 200K. If Bitcoin gets to 200K, its market cap will be around 4 trillion. If Bitcoin gets to 155K, its market cap will be around 3 trillion. All right? Where has Ethereum Bitcoin gone the last 2 alt seasons? Well, remember, we showed that alt season. It was finishing up around early January of 2018, and ETH Bitcoin was between 40 to 50% of market cap. Again, I just showed you. Right now, ETH Bitcoin, ETH is 23% of the market cap. 2017's alt season, it got between 40 to 50% of the market cap. Last alt season, okay, 2021, it was finishing up by early May. ETH got to between mid 30s to 40% of the market cap. It did get up to 0.5, by the time alt season finished out. So you can say at the peak 40, 50%. I'd even argue alts were kind of finishing pumping in here. So I'll say mid high 30s to 50%. Okay. Let's take the lowest possible top for Bitcoin that I believe, 150K, $3 trillion. Well, if ETH Bitcoin gets to 40%, or if Ethereum gets to 40% the market cap of Bitcoin, again, we're not looking at 50%, and we do see this macro trend line of lower highs, so let's factor that in. And let's say Bitcoin only gets to 150K and 3 trillion market cap. Okay, I'm not saying 200K or 4 trillion market cap for Bitcoin. I'm giving the lowest possible number, 150K, 3 trillion market cap. Where is Ethereum at 40% of Bitcoin? What is 40% of 3 trillion? And for any of you that are good at math, what you can do is just multiply 4 times 3, 40%. Okay, 4 times 3, the 3 trillion. That is a $1.2 trillion Ethereum. At what price is Ethereum at $1.2 trillion? Okay. It's a little over 2x from here. And it's close to 10K. Again, people have been thinking that's crazy for a while. 10K, 11K, that's the 2618 fib. Maybe Ethereum tops there. And again, that's with 150K Bitcoin. So we just made the argument at the start of this video about 200K Bitcoin. I'm saying in like one of the most conservative scenarios, Ethereum's getting around here if we get similar movements as to last time. Okay, I think I've stated my case. This is my philosophy, what I'm looking for as far as the Bitcoin cycle. I'm going to get into altcoins now. So if there's any alts you want to look at together, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to look at altcoins. I'm going to externally process my thoughts. Altcoins I like, altcoins I've maybe looked at, I'm interested in. I'll talk about Bitcoin miners. But if you have any requests or altcoins you want to look at together, or if you want to have a conversation, or you have a disagreement about something, please comment that below. Chainlink, it's my top altcoin. I love this. Love Chainlink. Okay. It's above the 618 fib. It's rising in its ascending channel. I am so happy I got some Chainlink down here, and then I was getting some Chainlink at the 382 area. I've been dollar cost averaging Chainlink. I'm very happy with what I've been doing. Okay. Now, if we ever get back down anywhere near the lower end of this channel, if Chainlink ever gets under 16, I think that's a good buy. If any of you are subscribers to this channel, you remember me saying any Chainlink under 14 is a good deal. And boy, was it. So Chainlink doing good right now. We have we can do fibs a couple ways. We have our macro fib, which you can see. I'm just playing with fibs right now. We have our micro fib, resistance at the 786. This is going to look similar but slightly different. I'm just looking for pullback support. You see support right at the 236. The 618 macro fib here, so $21 to 22 is going to be a range where I'd expect support for Chainlink. But getting underneath that, $19 in the moving averages are coming up to it. I could see being very good buying support for Chainlink. Eric, H-bar. I have some H-bar. I do like H-bar. I've had some H-bar since even last cycle. And let's see. Which one do we want to take a look at? Cool, it's this one. You can see I've not charted it in a minute. I had a macro chart. I had a micro chart. All right. Let's take a look at this micro fib, shall we? So on the weekly, H-bar, it recently bounced off that 20-week moving average. And micro fib, you can see here, high to low. We had a double bottom here. High to low after it made that move up. It came down, got support right at around that 0.5 micro fib. Let's get rid of this so we can see more clearly now. Macro fib wise, you can see high to low. H-bar ran into decent resistance. This is kind of similar to what Doge did. Doge got to its 786. I think at the end of last year, like 41 cents, 42 cents. And then we had a pullback, decent pullback. And even, how much was that pullback low to high? Was it a 0.5 pullback? Yep. Right on the dot, 0.5 pullback. You can see that. I do like this setup. Whenever this is showing me strength, and H-bar is one of those kind of semi-household names of cryptos. So low to high, we had that double bottom at the 0.5 fib at around 13 cents. Okay, now we're hanging out here. So I do like this area right here at around 20 cents. Is it going to get below that? Again, that depends like how much, if we are to expect a pullback in time, as I just argued, because we haven't had one in a while. Mark's been pumping very well. In the next couple weeks when, these pullbacks happen, where is H-bar going to go? Is it going to go here if it loses support? It could get as low as a 0.5 fib again. If H-bar gets anywhere near 14 cents and you like H-bar, that's an area I would not want to miss. But that 14 to 20 cent range, I think, is some good territory to pick some up. SWI. How do you guys say SUI? Do you say it by letter? Do you call it SWI? I've never really heard, one way or another what people prefer to say it as. Let's go to cryptos here so we're not bombarded with all this other stuff. SWI, we've looked at this one before. We have our macro fib. Yes, one of the things, I think I just did a video on this actually. One of the things to remember is, this just did a major move up. So always be careful. Anytime a crypto, within half a year does 1,000% move. Not to say it can't go higher. And by the way, let's take a look at market cap. H-bar, $10 billion. So if you're expecting, whatever price targets, what are you expecting? 50 billion, 100 billion. SWI, 13 billion market cap. Actually, sorry, I didn't give you price targets. H-bar, I didn't give you price targets. Let's go back to H-bar. Apologize. I got a little ahead of myself. These are, I will say, H-bar, of course, being one I have. I don't have SUI, but that one is very intriguing to me. I don't want to chase it because I already had that 1,000% move, and there's always another play out there. But, if H bar gets to these higher levels, here are some of the fibs to look at. 90 cents, a buck 45, a buck 99, 231. So H bar being at around 10 billion. A 10x is at this 4236. So for me, my plan with my H bar, I will have a percent of, this is where I will withdraw everything, but I will take out percentages along the way. And, if alt season, if dominance is already tanking and we're here, I might just withdraw the rest. But if we're not, I will take it by the fibs. And if it doesn't quite reach a fib but falls back down to one, I will withdraw whatever I was going to up here, down there, if that makes sense. That's how I attack those gains when alt season does come. And if this is your first cycle, first of all, congrats on being here when it's not alt season, because that will pay dividends if you're on the right altcoins. But have a plan. I cannot stress that enough. Being here in 2017, 2021, literally write down your plan as to where you're taking profits or what conditions you'll take your profits. Maybe it's when Bitcoin dominance is at 40 some percent. Just in case you don't hit your price targets that you want, what if your H bar doesn't get to 90 cents, but Bitcoin dominance gets down to 40% and H bar is at 80%, have price targets and conditions and, how much are you withdrawing when? So I would stress that. SUI, SWI, I think recently we had that, let's go to the daily. We had that high to low, so we have that fib in here. And we got a good bounce off, that 3-2 support got down to that 236. We had good support off that 236. So SWI is showing a lot of strength. It keeps kind of running into resistance here at the 618. It just recently did that again. I think this is your discount area, 355 to 311. Okay. If it gets underneath this 0.5 and anywhere near this micro 382, and this is one you like, I'd be taking a look at it. Again, $13 billion market cap. How high could it go? Let's take this fib off log. If you think SWI can be $130 billion, that's blowing these fibs out of the water. So if it gets to 100, if it does a 10x, you're talking about $37 SWI. So yeah, some of these that pump really good, I do struggle with them because I don't want to chase. But yeah, this just looks like a giant flag pattern. Let's actually get rid of this fib here. You have these series of higher lows. This just looks like it's getting ready. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah, let's see what happens. It's like this 50-week moving average, might come down there. I wouldn't want it getting below because that's a big move down. Unless if that move finished by, mid-October and it got down to the 100-week, I wouldn't want to miss that. Even me, I'd probably buy some, even though it had that big move. If we do get a bearish next 2-3 weeks, I wouldn't want to miss that. But yeah, I would not love to see a pennant move down there. And then lastly, ADA, Cardano. I have a little Cardano. I've been holding on the Cardano since 2017. So yeah, it's been a while. This one doesn't show. I think I have to go to US dollar. Yeah. Cardano was around before then. Because yeah, I got some Cardano in here and then in here somewhere. But I haven't. It's one of those altcoins where I was very intrigued by it in 2017, bought some, did like a 2x or something lame. And then last cycle, as it was dead, I picked up some more, but not a serious amount. Sold some, not a lot. So, Cardano is kind of boring. I still think this, 2618 target around $8, that would be sort of, my max bullish case. But, where have these tops been? $1.30, 310. I like that 1618 at around $5. So right now, Cardano, it's in that ascending channel. Let's take our fib off log. And yeah, I mean, look at all those bottoms at the 382. Not getting under the 382. Hate on Cardano all you want. Maybe it's only going to get you a 5x from here. But, in the world of crypto, people are like, oh, you need a 20x. You need a 100x. Those are degenerate gamblers. You take a 5x any day of the week. Hell, even a 2x. I think Cardano is a very safe, high floor, low potential altcoin. And this is crypto we're talking about. So when I say low potential, I'm not hating, but low potential, I'm talking about, looking anywhere between what I think, it might do between a 3 to a 6x. And, if that's good with you, great. Maybe you want to be safer with your large sums of money. Cool. I will caution you though. Last cycle, XRP, Bitcoin Cash, other altcoins that did very well in 2017. XRP, Bitcoin Cash, during this alt season, they only hit their 786. So if Cardano stalls at its 786 and dominance is tanking, and it's only at around $1.80, yeah, that's a 2x. Great. I'd be considering taking profits there. Actually, my goal this cycle, because I do have some altcoins from last cycle or the last two, and they're green, they're in the profits, they're not as great as I want. I don't pay attention to them as much as Chainlink or some of my mining stocks, but my goal is to clean up my portfolio. I have just like 4 assets that I'm pretty big in, and then I have around 3 that I have a medium-ish position in, and then I have about half a dozen sort of like Jasmy and former altcoins, District OX, ACH, some low cap miners that I have a smaller position in, and I'm doing a few different plays. Some of those low caps, the miners, let's get into that. The miners top with Bitcoin. And so the large cap ones I'm not messing with. When Chainlink hits my price targets, when dominance is tanking, I'm taking profits. But my low caps, if they run like I hope, not Mara, I'm talking about like stuff like Bitfarms and Hive, or District OX, these tend to top with Bitcoin. Okay. This one topped a number of times here, but my plan is to rotate the miners that top with Bitcoin into the altcoins that top after. And again, that's just a separate play. My main play, where I have more of my money in Mara, Riot, Cypher, Chainlink, my main play is to just take profits from those and not screw with those profits. Put those profits in the bank, okay? Or in my house, pay down my mortgage, pay for stuff that my family can have, right? You haven't made money until you withdraw. So my main play is I'm just withdrawing. I also have more of a degenerate for fun play where, if Bitfarms, if some of these lower cap mining stocks, again, miners tend to top with Bitcoin. If they top with Bitcoin and then I'm able to rotate into some altcoins before we have alt season, that's how you can get your 20 to 100x. And I'm not saying I'm going to get that, but that's my sort of for fun gambling play. Again, let's just go over to Mara. We'll come back to Bitfarms and stuff. And let's just add on where Bitcoin is. And please, if you think that plan's stupid, that's fine. You can say that. But it's, again, my fun play. Mara topping just before Bitcoin top 2017. Okay. Mara topping with Bitcoin. Okay. Not just Mara. Let's go to Riot. Riot topping with Bitcoin. Okay. Mining stocks, Bitcoin mining stocks top with Bitcoin. Riot topping the week after. Whatever. I'll withdraw the week of when I think Bitcoin's topping. If it's a week after, I don't care. But taking those profits from the lower cap miners that are my gamble plays and putting into crap like Jasmy, should those altcoins still be low? If Jasmy's still hanging around at 17 cents, then I'm rotating. That's going to be my rotation play. I'm going to rotate the hell out of that and see if a Jasmy can pop off. And, if I get, let's say, this is me being stupid here. Please don't copy this. I bought Bitfarms down here. I've had over a 2.5x on Bitfarms because I've been buying these levels. So if I get a 10x on Bitfarms and alt season is just about to start, Bitcoin's topping. Let's say Bitfarms is at around $9. I get a 10x, and then I rotate into Jasmy, which then does a 5x. 10 times 5 is 50. That's how you get a 50x play. Again, I don't recommend this. This is my lower cap play. Again, most of my money is in Mara and Link and Riot, and when they hit their targets, I'm just selling. I'm not screwing with it. But my lower cap plays, where I've invested just few thousand, if I get a 5 to a 10x, then that few thousand becomes, let's say, 10K, and then I rotate that into a Jasmy or something that hasn't run yet, or a District, and that does a 5x, that's a 25x. And it'll be funny to me if I pull that off, because then my lower cap sort of junk plays, might make almost as much money as my large cap plays. Robin, your content's great. I appreciate that. Thank you. I check your videos for mining analysis. All right, let's get into Mara. Okay, enough of me talking about my low cap gamble plays. Let me know if you think that's smart or stupid or intriguing. None of this is financial advice or anything. Mara, man, it's still within this channel. We had I cannot go without saying, we had someone comment a couple times how Mara, and I just looked this up, BTBT, what's that mining stock? BTBT, BitDigital may be doing share dilution. Mara has done some share dilution. So remember that if all of a sudden these mining stocks aren't performing the way you want, just factor in we have had share dilution. Now, the overall value, regardless, is at around this $80 range. And look at this massive channel. Okay, I do believe Mara, which has the most Bitcoin behind MicroStrategy. And if you don't know who Michael Saylor is, go down that rabbit hole. Obviously, he's promoting his own stuff. And, Bitcoin, there's no second best. He's a funny guy you can meet. You'll see all the memes about him. But you saw what MicroStrategy did, and I believe, look at this channel. Look at this. I mean, get rid of the channel. Look at that consolidation, accumulation, and how this could really pop off. And if you line up these last two tops, we see where it could go 180. Do the fibs line up? Let's take a look at our fib target. We have the 1618 and 2618. If we're between that, let's just do the middle. Let's say 150 or 180. Let's say, Mara does a 8 to a 10x. All right. Where is the market cap for an 8 to a 10x? Well, 8 times 7 is 56 billion. 7 times 10, 70 billion. Can Mara get between 50 and 70 billion market cap? I believe it can. I really do. Mara was the number one mining stock for a while. Iron, to their credit, is outperforming because, they don't have the share dilution issue, and, there's an AI component. So Iron's been doing very good lately, blowing it out of the wire. We were talking about Iron when it's down here, and Iron, it has one of those boring good charts that just goes up. We were talking about Iron all through here. Like, it keeps tagging this trend line. It got underneath. Could have bought Iron for $6 and done a 7x already. Again, miners top with Bitcoin. So, and this chart looks very similar to Ethereum. I can't get over that. Look at how, it sort of had that same dip with Ethereum. Now you're going to find similarities across a lot of charts. But yeah, Iron is knocking it out of the park, blowing it out of the water, whatever expression you want to say. The 1618 is upon us. The 44.5. Again, I think markets have been doing well for a hot minute here. I would not be shocked to see a pullback in time. And again, I think that matches up with seasonality. Ooh, something I can't forget to talk about, just because people are here and if you've been watching. Again, Fed just cut by 25 basis points. That tends to be good. And Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, said this. If you want to see the clip, they said, why didn't you do 50? And he said, we're not going to do 50 unless we need to, if there's some sort of an emergency. Look what happens when the Fed cuts by 50 basis points. Part of the economy is broken. Now, we had a 50 basis point cut last year, but remember, they cut by 50 the first time, didn't meet the next month. So already, over 2 months, that's an average of 25 basis points. And then November and December, the Fed cut by 25 again. So at the end of last year, there was a 25 basis point cut average. Okay? When they're cutting large and fast, shit's broken. Excuse my French. Sorry if kids are watching. I'm sorry. Okay? But that's when you know what's hitting the fan. And Jerome Powell blatantly said that. He said, jobs, it's not looking the greatest right now. We want to prop up the job market. We want to fight inflation, but inflation is, got low, but it's kind of concerning. Not a huge problem right now, but jobs are becoming a big problem, especially for younger people. He said, we're going to cut by 25 basis points, try to help with that. But, we're not going to cut by 50 unless it's an emergency. So that to me says, hey, we got the green light. We're good to go for half a year. But if they all of a sudden start doing 50 basis point cuts, emergency rate cuts, you want to be seriously considering taking profits before stuff tanks. Now, inflation is just when the price goes up or dollar value goes down. Okay? If we have inflation come as a result of this and jobs stay bad, unemployment goes up, that's stagflation. Our government rather have stagflation or inflation as opposed to deflation. Because at least if you're printing, at least if you have inflation, you're trying to boost up the economy, job growth, economic growth. Deflation, you have, obviously the opposite of inflation, but then you get unemployment going up, slower economic growth. So deflation's the last thing they want. And with a gun to their head, the Fed is like, you know what? Inflation, we'll take that risk and we'll cut by 25 basis points. So 25 basis point cut, green light. The Fed chairman even said, we didn't do 50 because there isn't an emergency to do it yet. But there are concerns there. Let's take a look at Riot, and I see another comment. Also, Withley, it's the first time on this bull run. I think it'll get the $1. What do you think? Let's take a look at Riot. Oh, man, I love my Riot. If you've been watching my channel, we've been saying, hey, Riot at the lower end of this channel, $7. Under $7, you got to get it. And, man, double bottom, it's looking good. I could see Riot, maybe stalling around the 618, golden pocket area. I'm looking for a 2x from here. Riot, I think, has big potential. I really do. The 1618 lines up somewhere with that trend line, kind of like Mara. Mara's lagging behind, but I think Mara's going to pop. Riot could be, 8 to 10x from here. But, we've been talking about it since $7. So I was looking for, a 20x from Riot. And again, if you're looking for a rotation play, if you bought Riot at $7 to $10, you get, a 15x. And you have some alts you really like that haven't popped yet, but look like they could. You could rotate that. If, the miners top with Bitcoin and then we get the alt season after, you could rotate that. That is a risk. I would make sure you love that crypto, whatever it is, and have the strongest of belief that it'll go up. If it just bleeds against Bitcoin and it's just dying completely, I would not touch it. I would not touch that at all. WLFI. If I looked at this one before, is this the right one? Let's get rid of the moving average nonsense. WLFI. Do we have to go to... Sometimes these are on MEXC before they're on Binance. When I see this, that tells me that's where it started. September. Please confirm, Eric. Is this the right one we're looking at? WLFI. World Liberty Financial. Well, that's a bigger altcoin. That's the number 26 overall altcoin. Let's match things up here. World Liberty Financial. 5.7 billion, 23 cents. Oh yeah, this is the one. Full disclosure, Eric, I have not researched this. I don't know crap about it. We're at the right one then. I don't know crap about it. I assume you're looking at getting some on Binance. Oh boy. Well, right here, as I zoom in, you see these higher lows. I'm just going by what I see here. I'm taking a look at this for the first time. I'm processing for the first time. Oh my God. I want to get this right here for you. Let's see. And then we have these highs. They keep hitting the ceiling here. That was right after it started. I like these highs a lot. These lower highs. Okay. The zooming in and out thing, because it's a newer chart. I'd be watching what it does here. And I think low to high. It's tricky. How much technical analysis can we do on one of these newer charts? It is tricky. Our fibs on log. Okay. That low to the next high, it came down to the golden pocket. It had a 618 retrace from the low. I like that. Got to the 618 golden pocket area, bounced up, but it was doing lower highs. Honors the fib. Look at all this fib nonsense in here. But instead of going back to the 3-2, it tagged that higher low and came back up, and that's why we're right here. Okay. What's that on? Moving average. So it is liking that 200 moving average. How much can I zoom out here? I like zooming out as much as possible to give me more of a macro perspective. I will admit, these newer coins, I do get a little concerned. All right, this is the 4 hour. I don't think the daily will give us as much as I would want. But you see on the 4 hour time frame, the 50 moving average has been great support ever since WLF got above it. And even that 100 moving average, this is on the 4 hour. So good support there, trend line. Hey, it could break out here. But again, I don't know a lot about this one. 5.7 billion. I believe Bitcoin hasn't topped yet. So, obviously altcoins, they can do very well by the time Bitcoin tops and then extends from there. And then, oh yeah, we have a low to high fib. Like, I don't know how to take any of this stuff seriously over here, from when it released. I'll do a high to low fib from that first green candle or the top of that wick. Again, I'm just playing right now. I'm playing around. I'm looking for things. These would be some of my targets personally. If it breaks out of this pennant, I'd be taking. I'm not going to draw a fib from here. I mean, we could do that for fun here in a minute, but I would be looking at once it breaks up, 32 cents, 42 cents, 51 cents, 57 cents. If we go from here, I would not be looking personally for it to get above that. You can see if we go from that high, it doesn't even hit that 236 yet. And we got to see how this reacts. When it comes out of this wedge, what's it going to do? So I cannot say that the fib is accurate from either of these, but if all of a sudden, it breaks up and then starts chopping around, here, then it's okay, maybe this fib is the one to look for. But if it starts, chopping around there, again, it's hard to chart with the fibs on such a new chart, in my opinion. So hope that helps. I wanted to take a look at a couple other mining stocks, cores. Someone in the comments, or a couple of people, I do think when you watch the videos, look for some of these comments. People have made great calls. I have some very smart subscribers. I got to hand it to you guys. There is someone who called for cores down here, said, cores is interesting. What's this all about? If you would have bought at, 350, you would add, over a 4x right now. Core is looking really nice, running those moving averages up. Let's go to the daily. Man, I think this thing's possibly getting ready to pop off. Now, this could be a lower high, and it could come back down to the 14.7 area. But yeah, someone called cores. There was another person that called Hive. And Hive is one of my Hive, BTBT, Bit Digital. Those are three of my low cap, stupid plays where if I make any profits, I will bundle those profits and put them into any alts that I believe can run for alt season. And if I lose that money, whatever, or if I don't make what I want, whatever, I'll be selling by the time dominance tanks. But, that's my separate fund plan from my, just take profit plan from Chainlink and Mara and Riot. Hive, got rejected off that 382. Don't love seeing that. But, hey, if Hive comes back down to 260, let's say we get that seasonality, a little bit of a dump, because things have been so good for a hot minute. And I think the seasonality chart has kind of played out the average. We had that top, and then we have new all-time highs. Are we going to get an early October dump? I'm kind of, thinking a couple weeks from now, that we could get that. And I'll be aggressively buying that dip. So, if Hive gets down to 258, cool. But someone called Hive down here, and I doubled my money. I put some in, not a lot. I'm like, all right, cool. I could withdraw. I haven't because I'm greedy. And I see this descending channel. Again, this is part of my greedy play. And if this tops with Bitcoin, again, how's Hive looking? Pixel Pusher, what's up, dude? I am concerned about Hive at the 382, Pixel Pusher, to be honest. We have this descending channel. I want to see it hold that 382 and pop out of that channel. That's what I want to see. But if Hive, it's shown resistance there. If Hive gets down to the 260s, 270s, I think if you like Hive, that's an area you can't ignore. Bit Digital, they were going to have a vote on share dilution. It's a 1 billion market cap miner. I like how this one's staying above the 382. I liked it here. I bought some. So, if it gets, again, we had share dilution, that can throw stuff off. But if it gets to 13, 15 bucks, cool. I've done, 270, 540. That's a 2x. 1080. That's a 4x. So if I only get a 5x from Bit Digital because of share dilution, more than happy with that. And if I rotate that into a Jasmy or a District, and that does a 5x again, or a 4x, I can get a 20x. Again, that's my degenerate play. But man, I love how Bit Digital is just sort of accumulating in here. We can draw a channel, whatever you want. I love this. And if you're getting it anywhere in here, between sort of the high $1 range, 280, I'll say. If you like Bit Digital, I like it here. We took a look at Bitfarms, and man, Bitfarms just popped. There's been miners kind of popping off lately. People, it's funny, you see the comments too, and the views were very low. That's a bullish indicator to pick some up. When the views are low and people are like, oh, these things are never going to work, I buy more at those times, and it's not failed me. People were talking about, these miners, I don't even know if they're going to do anything. And then all of a sudden, boom, Bitfarms popped off. Wolf recently popped off. Okay, it went from $5 to $11 out of nowhere. I got some Wolf when it's down here. We were talking about when it's $1.60. So, I've 10x my Wolf almost already. My Cypher, the Wolf, Cypher, CLSK, some of my medium-ish plays. Cypher obviously getting close to its all-time highs. But we were talking about Cypher in here and how nice and choppy and boring it was. And I'm like, I love stocks that do this because that tells me it's going to be ready to pop off. And yeah, we got some flushes, got down to the 0.5 and then boom, 250 to 1270. So that's a 5x right there. And I think these can really run even more. So, pay attention, guys. You got to be here during the boring times. Who's the YouTuber? Dave Ramsey, I think. He has a phrase, I'll give him credit. I believe it's him where he says time in the market's more important than timing the market. I overall agree with that. If you spend time in the market and I think simplify your portfolio, you could see, it's at this level, I should buy. But this was the time, it's like, it's boring. We just had a flush. Are these even going to do anything? Those are the times to buy. That's why I say in every video, look for value when there's fear. When there's fear and it's boring and you don't want to pay attention, those are the times to buy. And sticking to that plan this cycle, I have religiously stuck to that plan, and it has helped me out a ton. I've been doing very good with my mining stocks, especially recently. And it just feels good. It feels good to, I'll just say personally, this is just me personally talking to you guys. It feels good to have a plan, have a belief, because I've been here in 2017, 2021. I've done my research. I could have made more money. I got a little greedy and stupid, but still made money. I had more of a plan last cycle, made some money, very solidly. And this time I really had a plan. Okay. Where I did my research. I have my large cap bags where I'm just going to take profits. I have my medium cap bags where I have a little bit of fluidity. I'll take some profits, take profits from take half the profits. The other half rotate if any altcoins are in a good position. And I have my aggressive, fun gambling play with my low caps, my Hive, Bit Digital, Bitfarms, where if those top and do very well with Bitcoin, if they top with Bitcoin, and I rotate an 8 to a 10x into, maybe a Jasmy or a DNT, and those do an 8 to a 10x. This is a 2017 altcoin. Like, look at this. 2017 popped off to near 50 cents. Last cycle popped off near 50 cents. 2024 March popped off, 14 cents. I'm not saying it's going to go back to 15 cents, but there's some dark corner of the web where someone's just putting their money randomly in DNT, because it's still there. And Coinbase could delist it and this thing could just freaking die. That's possible. Again, this project's dead. It was like an NFT thing, so I'm not saying to buy this, but this is one of those where it's like when it shows that random strength and isn't just falling off a cliff. There's charts where it's just this, and then I'll show you one of the plays that didn't work out for me last cycle. I'll admit it. Which one do we want to do here? God's Unchained. Ugh. Early on it's like, okay, maybe this thing is promising. Maybe we're going back up. Bleh. If your chart looks like this, I would not touch it because it just keeps dying. Do not touch that crap. This was a mistake I made when I got greedy. In 2017, the mistake I made was AppCoin. I'm like, there's a crypto for apps, AppCoin. We're going to have a crypto that can be used in every app. Sounds great. Great research. The research looked great. AppCoin is going to be the currency for apps. And then the frickin' project died. You can't even find it anymore, I believe. I've tried to. APPC was the ticker. It's not even that. But it looked like that God's Unchained chart. So if your crap coin looks like that God's Unchained, don't touch it. Do not touch it. Again, this one, I've looked for it before. I don't even think it doesn't even exist anymore, which is just, sad pandas. App coins. Yeah. So anyways, my plan, me personally, Mara, Riot, Link, if those make money, and they have for me, they're good, but if they make money, I take those profits and I use it personally. I have medium cap plays like HBAR, Cypher, Clean Spark, Wolf. What are some other altcoins? I have more assets than I should. I'll admit that. Near, I got a little bit of near Ondo. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to look at Fetch. Fetch is another one of my medium cap plays where from those medium cap altcoins and miners, if they do well, half those profits I'll keep, half I'll rotate is my plan. And then my low caps, Bit Digital, Bit Farms, Hive, if they do well, I'm looking at some of those lower cap ones. Bonk, freaking even. Now Fetch, man, I talked about this before. I got some Fetch when it was in the 6 cent range. What do I think about low caps? Nui Jimsy said. Let me finish this out real quick and I'll tell you. I got some Fetch when it was down here, and I sold some when it was here because my dog, she tore her knee. She needed knee surgery. And I said, you know what? I made frickin' almost 10x out of nowhere. Or it made some great money. I'm like, this will pay for the surgery. And I just, it still had some Fetch left over, but what good is money if you're not going to use it to, improve your life. And I care about my family, my community, those who I serve, who I volunteer, I coach, I have pets, if those I care about are sick or hurt, I'm going to take care of them. So I'm like, you know what? I just made freaking great money out of nowhere. I'll use some of that fetch bag to help my dog. And I'm glad I did. Do not regret it. Eventually it went down. I was like feeling pretty good about it. Then it went up. Then it went really up. And it's like, man, I could have paid for like freaking, what is $3.20 divided by 7 cents. So, that's not just a 10x. That's a 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. That was like a 50x, 60x I could have had if I would have sold up here, but whatever, it's fine. I like Fetch over here. I like Fetch where it's at right now. And we are in an AI bubble. Where is it? Here we go. We are in an AI bubble. I'll start closing out with this. Oh, and I have to answer the low cap question. Here's the .com bubble, Shiller PE ratio. Back here when we were at a similar Shiller PE ratio at 40, this was December 98, the market's still at a year to pump and finish pumping until the top. It's still at like 400 days. So if we have another year, that's for stocks. But again, .com bubble, we're in an AI bubble. The Fed just cut by 25 basis points. 25 basis points has always been bullish. So I believe we could see that AI bubble hit euphoria with stocks within this next year and with crypto within the next 6 months. I believe that's what's going to happen. I believe the Bitcoin top is coming within the next 6 months. Okay. Now, AI bubble, this is one of the, look at it, artificial intelligence. The coin says AI. Do I believe this crypto is doing anything to help the world? Does it have utility? That's a crypto buzzword. No. I think 99.8% of all cryptos are just utter crap. They don't do anything to improve our lives. They say, we're going to do this and that. Do we use Fetch in our daily life? No, we don't. Do we use IMX? No, we don't. Do we use SEI, Bonk? No, we don't. Let's be honest. We use these cryptos. We buy them low to sell them high to improve our lives. In the crypto world sphere, Chainlink actually has good utility. Cool. Chainlink is an altcoin that it'll continue to do well. Doge, I think that one, this next cycle when we get our bear market, Doge and Tron, those are two I do not want to be touching. I have some Doge. I'll take profits from it. I made the best profits from Tron in 2017. But if you go down to Justin Sun, he's the CEO of Tron. You go down a rabbit hole about him. I think Tron is enemy number one for this next bear market. We had FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried before. That crashed the market in November of 22. 2018, we had BitConnect. Look up Carlos Matos. But I think that's a good segue to Nued Jimcy's comment. What do I think about low caps? I think low caps pump after Bitcoin tops. Okay, they might randomly pop off here and there, but you have to sort of, my cat feeder is about to go off, just a warning, you'll hear weird noise in the background. I recorded my voice telling the cat to come eat. But you'll see random altcoins pop off. If you catch the right altcoin, the right low cap, you can make amazing money. But the lower you go on the market cap list, the higher the risk, and so do your research. Like Fetch, I think Fetch could do a 10x from here at most. I do think Fetch could get to $6. I think, people talk about, there's one I just saw, Caspa, look at the chart, what does it look like? ICP, that's one where I'm like, ICP's chart, I do not love this chart, but could an ICP randomly get to, if ICP gets to $15, that's a win. If it gets up here, I hate this chart. I hate ICP's chart. So I'm not looking to buy ICP. I mean, Algo, that's been around that's the Gary Gensler coin from 2017. I look at some of the older coins, Algo. This did well last cycle, so I think, it has potential to do well again, and it's challenging the 382. If they get above the 382 and they're just kind of hanging there, I feel good about that. Jasmy, again, it shows some strength. I like that these show some strength, but I don't want to see it get down here like ICP. There was another altcoin. What was it called? Like Arrow. I did a video on it once. Where is Arrow? Because we'll look at Near as well if we have time. Arrow. Here we go. Aerodrome Finance. Okay. That's one that intrigued me. We talked about it last year. We talked about it last year. And I was saying, after it had that big pump, I'm like, I'm not touching this. And it pissed some people off. But I'm not touching stuff as it's pumping that much. If someone's talking about, what do you think of Arrow? And it did 1,000% in a month. I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for the pullbacks, okay? And from the fib, the high to low pullback, let's get rid of this fib. From the high to the low pullback, it got to the 0.5. And then it got to it again. These were the times to buy Arrow when it was at 63 cents, when it was at 48 cents, okay? I think Arrow could do well, but again, if we're going to get a flush here in a couple weeks, where could it go? I do like how it bottomed at that 0.5. If Arrow got, again, to that 62 cent level, I think anywhere underneath that is good to pick up. So low caps, I want to see the chart. The chart has to show me something. Okay, it can't be like ICP or God's Unchained. I want to see a decent community. And remember, this is crypto. Last cycle, Doge pumped because Elon, and people didn't hate him as much as they do now. He pissed off the liberals who buy his cars on the West Coast, to not pollute. He pissed those people off by supporting Trump, and then he pissed off the MAGA people, by attacking Trump and saying he's on the Epstein list, and it sure looks like Elon's struggling with ketamine. And, there's people, they're Elon loyalists. And I think Elon, he has said some good things about how both parties, they just spend, and that's an issue. I agree with that. There's my cat feeder. And yeah, I have a couple cat feeders, and they hear that and they go feed, so it's awesome. I like the technology Elon's pushed forward, but he's pissed off both extreme sides of the aisle. I consider myself more of a centrist. I have a South Park sense of humor. I'll go after everyone. I call bullshit on everyone. And that's part of the reason why, I even got in the field of psychology. I grew up in a big Italian Catholic family. And as I got older, I learned some of this stuff is kind of nonsense. And so I have a BS meter in my brain, and you need that in crypto. You need that in crypto because you got to be able to call BS on these projects. What is Aerodrome going to do for any of us? What's Fetch going to do for any of us? What are any of these low caps going to do for us? They're not going to be part of our daily lives. So we are here because we want to find a good low cap we can buy low and sell high. Let's have an honest conversation about that. And if you disagree with that and you're like, Aerodrome's going to solve finance and the US dollar is going to die and Aerodrome's going to, replace the dollar and Jasmy's going to replace the yen or, the Japanese peso. No, it's not a peso. I'm just ranting right now. The graph is going to, they're partnering with Toto toilets. We're going to decentralize hand dryers. Like all these buzzwords, decentralization, utility, institutionalization, it's all a load of BS. We are buying low to sell high. So if PayPal USD. Let's just make a crypto where we have the company name in it, and this is the crypto version of the stock, PYUSD. I want to take a look at this now. Every cycle is something new, and you gotta watch it. Oh my God. This one says $1. Is this just a stable coin? Is that what that is? Yeah, it's a stable coin. Okay. Are you going to put your money into PayPal USD stablecoin instead of Tether? I'm not going to. So every cycle there's new nonsense with the low caps. You want to find charts that show some strength, that they can randomly pop off. Okay? And it's up to you to do your research. And again, turn on your BS meter in your brain. Assume this is a cult. Any of these crypto projects are cults. There's no cult worse than XRP. And it's a shame. One of my top videos, I think it is my top video, where I talk about how XRP is not going to $10,000. And people are like, oh, it's the market cap argument. Market cap matters. If you don't believe that, you are in a cult. If XRP is 10K, if XRP 3X's from here, we're talking about $540 billion market cap. Okay. But they're talking about, going to 10K and XRP being worth 50 or 100 trillion, something stupid like that, more than the global GDP. That's not going to happen. Okay. XRP to $10, you have an argument. And hey, I have a lot of good things to say about XRP. I really do. I do not have a lot of good things to say about XRP's top potential. $10 at best, in my opinion. 500-ish billion dollar market cap, that makes sense. Hey, if it goes to $1 trillion market cap, it'll be at $20. Could that happen? In the most bullish scenario, sure. $20 XRP, why not? It is not going to $100 this cycle. It is not going to, what would that be, 5 trillion market cap? XRP is not going to the market cap Nvidia has. So if you believe that it's going to 100, you are in a cult. So my followers, my subscribers, you are a lot smarter than most people. Check the comments. You guys suggest good altcoins, good miner stocks randomly. When you're like, hey, take a look at this. You guys are batting over 500. You're shooting over 500, well over 500. So you guys are smart, and I like that we're building a smart community where we can see the forest through the trees and we can see the BS. So yeah. Hello, good sir, and everyone else. Mujkashin, welcome. We're near the end of the live stream. So again, be careful with low caps. And again, remember, this happens once Bitcoin tops. Once the whales do not want to keep buying, they're like, Bitcoin is too expensive. 200K Bitcoin, I am not buying that. Smart money is going to say, it has a 4 trillion market cap, 200K. I'm just speaking, hypothetically. 400K, 4 trillion market cap, 200K Bitcoin. I'm not buying that. Hey, there are some low cap altcoins, that are at a juicy price. Let's put some of our money into that. The dumb money, the retail, all of us, they'll get excited and they'll chase that price action. And guys, I've seen this. District is a good example. Last cycle. Okay. Last cycle, I'll walk you through it. All of a sudden we got this pop. Look at the day, August, 2020. December is when it really started. This is what was happening with a lot of altcoins. This dead project altcoin from 2017. All of a sudden it went from, let's clean this up a little bit. All of a sudden it went from, less than a penny to 8 cents. People are like, oh, okay, something's happening. By the way, this is when Total 3, December 2020 is when Total 3, the total market cap outside Bitcoin and ETH, was getting into new all-time highs. And this is where the excitement started, where retail is like, are we going to get, an alt season again? Is crypto back from the dead? They weren't buying down here. And buying down here is tough for altcoins. But look at these higher lows. That's strength to look for low caps. I was in here. I got in here. I was very happy. I bought some more over here. I was like, maybe this is going to pop off again. And then boom, came down to 5 cents, jumped up to 20 cents. Okay. And this took, I was like, well, this took about 60 days. And I'm telling you what I was literally thinking last cycle. And this took 30 days. I'm like, watch the next move, take about 15 days or less. And it did. And all of a sudden we popped up and I sold my district at 34 cents, around there. But I bought in here and here. And it's like, we're, getting this exponential curve, where we had, was this a 120-day move? Where's 120? It's right around there. And nothing really there, though. Or maybe this is 240. Yeah, look at that. So, so doing math right here, 240-day accumulation, 60-day accumulation. So it was a quarter of that, and then it was half of that, and then it was a third of that. That's what you see when we're getting near alt season. This is what happens with a lot of alts. I'm using this as an example, but this is what I saw across the spectrum, is that the long accumulations, the accumulations get shorter as we get near that peak. That's what happened last cycle. Again, December is when stuff was like, is this going to be it? And then, oh God, it's coming. And then boom, it's over before you know it. Okay, we did top later on in April, but I sold here. And I was like, I went to 50 cents, whatever. Sold, took profits, was happy. Eric, you're welcome. Thank you for being here and part of the conversation. Hope you guys don't mind hearing me externally process. I'm just trying to share my experiences and knowledge of what happened last cycle, last 2 cycles, in hopes that it helps us. Okay? Those are some of the signs I'm looking for. Again, we're getting these higher lows. Lower highs too. District could be a dead coin. Okay? It could be. But if all of a sudden, total 3's in the new all-time high and district starts popping up here, or other altcoins are doing that, then we know, okay, stuff is coming. Chainlink, last cycle. I mean, my God, look at this since 2017. What a beautiful chart. And it topped, right at the end of alt season. So Chainlink, what a beautiful chart. I'd love if something like that happened. But let's go from the 2018 low to high. 31,500%. If you were buying Chainlink at 20 cents, and selling it, let's just say at 40. 20 cents times 10 is $2. Okay? Times 100 is $20. So you had a 200x here if you bought these lows. I do not think Chainlink's going to 200x this time around. But I do have some bullish targets. Let's zoom out here. Chainlink's my number one altcoin. It did martial arts for a long time, taught martial arts, and one of my favorite expressions is you sharpen a sword too much, it gets dull. I think a lot of crypto people, and I have to watch out for this myself, we can overcomplicate things, trying to see, everything going on. I'm not looking for 30,000%. Let's say 1/10 of that. 1/10 of the move last time. Could Chainlink get up to $200? And if it does, where will it be? Okay, a little under a 10x. Can Chainlink get to a $150 billion market cap? I think it could, but if it does, I'm taking profits on everything. I do not care if Chainlink goes to 400, 500, whatever. If Chainlink gets up here, I'm selling everything. Now I'm going to sell on the way up. And let's say Bitcoin dominance is tanking. If Bitcoin dominance is tanking to these levels and Chainlink is, if Bitcoin dominance is down here and Chainlink is only, here, I have to consider taking profits and be like, you know what? This cycle, this was not one of the chosen ones. I believed in Chainlink. I think it is a sleeping giant. This is, I'm being kind of a shill here. I'll admit it. I'm being biased. So don't listen to me. Listen to me. Make your own choice. But I believe Chainlink, as far as the large caps outside of the top, I'm looking for it to replace Tron or Doge. Get Doge out of here. I wanted to take a look at Near Protocol, and we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for being here, everyone. Appreciate you guys. We'll wrap it up after talking about Near. We haven't charted this one in a while. Okay. It's got to get above that golden pocket. Do not like how it got under that 382. It needs to get above that 382 and show some support. So if you like Near, like, hey, I'll buy some at $2. Okay. But as long as we're under the 382, we are technically bearish. And not just that, the 50-week moving average of 382, those are, if you don't break the 382, you can put in new lower lows. Getting above it is bullish. If you get above the 50-week moving average, you're bullish. I mean, look what happens here. Went from $2 to $7.50, so a little over a 3x. Okay, AVAX could be a sleeper too. Mushkashin says, I have some AVAX. You guys ask about AVAX a lot. You're talking me into it. Like, AVAX is moving from my medium-ish portfolio position. It's on the fringe of being one of my top plays. People are talking about AVAX being the next Solana for next cycle. Or maybe SWI will be the next Solana. People are talking about AVAX and SWI a lot as the big altcoins for next cycle. But that they could still do good this cycle. SWI already ran hard. AVAX, look at these descending channels. I love this. I love what AVAX is showing. And not just that, what was I just talking about with Near Protocol? Okay, it's under the 382, it's under the 50. I love when the 50-week and the 382 line up. Okay, that happened with ETH Bitcoin. And we have AVAX showing, hey, I can be above my 382 because there's a lot of buzz around AVAX. Yeah, man, you got to pay attention to that. However, I will caution you, last cycle, there was buzz around Bitcoin Cash, buzz around XRP, even with the lawsuit. People were like, lawsuit. They're like, this lawsuit's going to be solved and XRP is going to $5. People were saying that last cycle. So there's different types of buzz. There's shilling, there's hype, and then there's buzz. I agree with you, Mushkashin. I like the buzz around AVAX. I really do. I like these descending channels. I mean, look at what AVAX does. It can just pop off. It can drop off, but when it pops, it goes. Again, we've had a couple of bad drops, okay? But I like AVAX here at around $25. If we get rejected here at the 0.5 macro fib at 35 and get down near 25, I like it there. I want it to hold there, but just take a look, last cycle, it came out December 2020, and by November, 4,000% move up. What would be a 400% move up? This is what I see happen a lot of times is we'll have like a tenth of the move next time around. What would be 400%? Okay, that's right at the 0.5 fib about. Where is 4,000%? Okay, are we going to get another similar move? 370, that's like a 10x from here. Are we going to get another 4,000% move? 2,000%? 3,000? Our fibs are not off log. That's a problem. Let's do that again. Here we go. From the low, the 1.236 fib is right at 180. The 1618 at around 231, 370 at the 2618. So we had a 4,000% move last cycle. If we got near the 2618, I'd be selling everything. And plus, that's a 10x from right now. So I do like that. I do like that potential of AVAX. Seems like a lot of companies are interested in partnering with it. That's a good type of buzz, and it's cheap. I agree with you there. I would be careful of all that partnership buzz. This was especially a thing last cycle, and in the bear market of this cycle, people are talking about Amazon is partnering with blank. Philips is I literally heard there's a crypto partnering with Philips. I'm like, what the hell is that going to do? It's just, you want to be careful of some of that noise. It's like, are my Philips headphones or microwave, I'm just naming random products they make. What does crypto have to do with a Philips microwave or headphones? So I think some of that's nonsense, personally. We can disagree on that. That's okay. But the partnership talk, I think I'm a little jaded because last cycle, oh my God, there's so much partnership talk. And it was just, does that do anything for me? This crypto is, partnering with Apple. Okay. What is my phone or my computer or my headphones how is it going to use Cardano or whatever? So, don't be on Twitter too much is what I'd say. Don't be on X too much, or people will say the most outrageous stuff. Try to sift through the BS. There's I wish I could remember the guy's name to give him credit. I remember because I follow him on X, formerly Twitter, and I remember him tweeting back here. He's a good follow. I'll have to look it up and get back to you guys. But he calls a lot of good stuff. And he said Chainlink under $7 is, or he's something like buying Chainlink in the $6 range is insane. He basically said getting it under $7 is ridiculous. And we are never going to see Chainlink at this price again. And look at all that accumulation and then boom. It's these large caps. Chainlink, Mara, people get a little bored with them. They're like, God, this is a strong altcoin. AVAX, this is a good project, a lot of good things. Why isn't it popping? If they truly are great, and I believe Chainlink's great, AVAX, I do like it, okay? By the time we get alt season, you will be happy. They kind of lull you to sleep. I don't know if I'm going to keep dollar cost averaging this. It's not moving. And they can pop off, man. They can truly pop off. Do a 20x, a 10x. So it's tough. It's tough to pick the right ones. But if you do, you will benefit from it. And please screenshot this. Again, and right down here, Bitcoin too expensive. Once Bitcoin tops, it's too expensive to keep buying. The 3 weeks after, I hope your alts are the chosen ones. I truly do. Arrow, XRP, I hope all of our alts pump. Even if you disagree with me, if you're like, this guy talks crap about XP. I don't talk crap about XRP as the project. I talk crap about people's delusions that it's going to $100. Okay? I hate that because I do not want to see any of you guys. You guys are my subscribers. I've made money just talking, about my own stuff and, sharing my thoughts with you. I've made money because of you guys. A couple $100 so far from ad revenue. Thank you. I do not want to see you guys be left holding bags. I have friends, coworkers, and, one family member who, they fell into the retail hype, the euphoria hype over here, and we're holding a bag for 4 years. And then there's a coworker I'm thinking about right now. She's like, yeah, I bought some Bitcoin. And now, she's doing fine, but she had to hold it for frickin' 4+ years. These people who say XRP to 100, and it's not going to get there, and you're going to be holding your crypto waiting for a decade. I mean, that's ridiculous. I know people who have been waiting a decade on a specific crypto because they bought near the top. Okay, that's what retail does. Retail chases the whales. Okay, we're hunting Moby Dick. So I do not want to see you guys falling into that trap. I appreciate all of you. I want to see all of you make profits. I don't care if you make profits on Fartcoin. It's hilarious people talk about that. I want to see you make profits on everything. I truly do. But I'm going to be honest about unrealistic price targets because I don't want to see you bag hold. I don't want to hear you being a cultish baggy. Okay? And I'm going to be honest about the potential of altcoins. And, some of these, I do my price target videos, my quote unquote predictions. I'm going to be wrong on a lot of them, but I encourage a conservative-ish mindset so you're not left bag holding and that you're just thinking about that you're actually making a plan to take profits. I see this all the time in the work I do in the field of psychology. People make a lot of mistakes when they do things on impulse. With a relationship, getting back with an abusive partner impulsively, because they have that infatuation. When they break up with someone or say something impulsively because they're worried about being hurt again. When someone gets in trouble, gets arrested because impulsively they made a bad decision when their brain was angry in its limbic system, fight or flight mode. Okay? I talk to a lot of people who make mistakes based on impulse. So that's why I'm trying to, on my channel, share my BS meter thoughts with you, share my conservative thoughts, get you guys actually, write down your own plans. I'm not going to make a plan for you. I'll share my plan, how it kind of works, but write it down and have that plan because, I've been here since 2017 and having a written down plan is what helped me make profits. And I hope it helps you make profits. Not buying on impulse and euphoria and FOMO has helped me make money. Believing Tron was going to $100, $50, whatever, $5. I think it was at like 20 some cents, and not taking profits on the 200x. That greedy type of thinking is what stopped me from making more money than I could have. Okay, still made money, but I could have made more. So only thing worth holding is Bitcoin. I agree with you. Long term. And by the way, just think about this. Chew on this. One of the things with Bitcoin, we can use this chart. Let's go to. I want to go to the monthly. I want to know your thoughts here. I'm going to talk about this in a video soon. Where's the next Bitcoin bottom? We're on the monthly time frame and we have monthly moving averages. The EMA 20, 50, 100, 200. Red's the 20, orange is the 50, light blue is the 100. Dark blue hasn't appeared yet. It probably will soon. That's the 200. Bitcoin in 2015 topped at the 50-month moving average. Cool, great. 2017 cycle, at the bottom of 2018, COVID, it still bottomed at the 50-month moving average. All right, fine, great. It kind of got close to the 100-month moving average, but it didn't. Last cycle, it got between the 50 and the 100-month moving average, okay? Bottomed at the 100. So what am I looking for? Bitcoin can go to 150K top, 200K top, whatever. I am watching towards the 100-month moving average like a hawk. And this will move up, but is the bottom for Bitcoin? Is that 100-month moving average when Bitcoin tops comes down? Is it going to level out around 57K? If Bitcoin gets to the 100-month moving average or below it, the 200-month moving average will appear soon. If it gets below it, I am buying it in that area. That's where I will buy Bitcoin. Super Guppy. Yeah, this one just shows the 50. I believe I'm looking for an indicator that actually has the 200-month moving average on it. And maybe it's just out there. 200. We have the SMA. Curious. I've never used this indicator before. By the way, just do this. If you're like, hey, I've heard about blank indicator, where is it? Just type it in. That's the 200 days, so that's not even going to appear. 200 week moving average, 200 month. I want to see it appear. Moving averages, simple, exponential. Let's do the simple. Yeah, nothing there yet. So I do not know where the 200-month moving average is. I would assume it's at a similar spacing, so probably down here, probably at 30K. Okay. But if the 100-month moving average is around 60K by the time Bitcoin tops and the 200 is at around 40K, if Bitcoin, tanks, we get a big recession, a crash, and Bitcoin gets between or like to the 100-month and below it, I am buying Bitcoin heavy at that time. So I agree with you, Mushkashin. I'll take profits from Chainlink, but, the altcoins next cycle, I'll probably go back in the Chainlink unless it underperforms this alt season. And I'll be looking very closely at the bottoms for SUI and AVAX. Okay. Every cycle I try to simplify my portfolio. I have about a dozen, give or take. I'd have to count. Maybe it's closer to 15 crypto assets. Yeah, it's about that. 4 large cap, 5 or 6 medium cap, and about 6 small cap. So, yeah, it's about 15. And it's maybe too many. And if you think I'm stupid, I don't disagree with you. I would rather have a portfolio of 5 things. I think the reason I don't is, 2017, my portfolio was about 5 things. And Cardano did fine, District did really good, and Tron was huge. But there were other altcoins I bought and sold, like IOTA and Dragon Chain, that they didn't really do anything. And then last cycle I simplified it a little bit, but I bought some more. I spread out the wealth, and I got some HBAR, did fine with that. Added to my Cardano, did okay with that. My District OX did really good. There's something else I bought. I did not chase Doge. I think maybe I bought some Doge after the first pump. That was the Wall Street bet days. I'd have to go back and look. Screwed up with Gods Unchained before the top. Thought I'd go higher and it just kept bleeding. Yeah. There's another altcoin. I'm trying to remember. Because I still have a bag of it. And it didn't do what I wanted. So yeah, I think I had like about 8. And this time around, I've been doing a lot of research just through these videos. And I think, that's a problem with these videos is I see good projects and I, throw a few hundred or 1,000 at it. But anyways, I'm starting to kind of ramble here. Let's close it out. Thank you guys so much for watching, joining, being part of the convo for the live stream. I wanted this one to just be more casual and having a conversation, sharing my thoughts. I am going to purposely next live stream just talk about altcoins and miners and get away from some of the macro stuff. So I'll try to do that next Friday again. Thank you guys so much for watching. Y'all are wonderful. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.